So I'm Eleanor and I am currently project managing BVDfree England. So I'll give you a brief background on how it came about. So we've heard all the other schemes where they've got government legislation behind it now, but we're a little bit behind that. So in around 2011, the Cattle Health and Welfare Group, which is an industry body, they came together and decided that BVD was a definite priority and something needed to be done about it in England. So they got a stakeholder group together, and in, I think, about 2014, they decided, yeah, we need recommendations on this, we need to set about and get industry involved. So from that stakeholder group, the BVDfree England technical director were formed. So this was the first 6 industry bodies that came together and said, yeah, we believe this is a good idea, we're going to do something about it. So this board is made up of Bill Mellor, who's the independent chair, and then industry representatives from each of these companies. So they're currently running the scheme and they're overseeing it, all the strategy. So the BVDfree England had a statement of intent, which was saying they wanted industry to get behind this and say, yeah, we think it's a good idea, we want to do something about it. So in the beginning, there were these 6 organisations, but now I think we've got about 111 industry organisations backing it. So we need their support to make this run well. And we also have the BVDfree Technical Group, which a few of them are in this room now, who oversee all the technical side of it to make sure we are running it in line with the other schemes and that it is going to work properly. BVDfree is centred around this database. So we do get a few comments about the database and is it working well, is it the best thing to do? And it was procured, so it was put out to tender as to whoever in industry thought, yeah, we can do it, we're going to run this, and a help desk. So this was won by XL Vets, and they're doing a great job of it, of running it, and also they've got a help desk as well, where all the questions for BVDfree England are centred, and then they can go out to the technical group as well, so we get it answered pretty well. And then, so a year ago, this Saturday, BVDfree England was launched. So the scheme runs on 2 options for testing. So there is either testing individual animals for virus or looking at a herd exposure by looking for antibodies. So with the individual virus testing, animals will get an individual status as either BVD virus test negative or BVD virus test positive. And then with the herds, after a herd has done 2 years' worth of testing under the scheme, they'll get a BVD-free herd status. So currently, herds haven't done their 2 years of testing, so the only statuses on there are for checks accredited herds. So in the last year, we've got, as a voluntary scheme, we've managed to get 1,044 holdings registered with BVD-free. So I think that's about 2.7% of the national herd. On there, we've got 117 checks herd statuses, but we are looking to use this database because we know that checks members are doing so much already for their health status that we want that to be visible through BVD-free. So it's all in one place, that information. So within those 1,044 holdings, we're covering about 8% of the national breeding herd. In year 1, we've got 30,000 individual virus samples on the database, and we've got 3,500 antibody samples on there. So we've got a long way to go before we've got all the animals covered through our database. So this is looking at the number of holdings who have signed up with BVD-free. And if you look at it as a percentage of the holdings in each of those counties, where we've got these darker areas is normally where we've got a vet practice or a few vet practices that are really heavily involved in it and they're really pushing it because they can see the benefits and they really want their farmers involved. So even here we've got a lot of holdings, but they're quite cattle-dense areas, so we've got a long way to go, especially there. So what have our successes been? So we are a voluntary scheme. It was never going to eradicate BVD in year 1, but it's the industry engagement that we've had. So the BCVA, one of their members sits on our board, and they've got the CPD training for vets to complete. And I think about 50 have already completed it within England. So we've got a little way to go, but when they work through that, it gives them a bit of a recap on the disease and then also how the BVD-free scheme works. The labs have done so much for us. We've got those designated labs who take in all the samples, test them, and then they're the only people who can upload them to the database. So it gives us a bit of independent verification there. We did an auction mark roadshow earlier in the year, which was really successful. We had a lot of farmers come, and we also had auctioneers there and vets. And it was just quite interesting to get an overview of what industry felt about the scheme and how it was going. The tag companies. So it is an option if farmers want to tag and test or if they do want to blood sample. But a few of the tag companies have decided that we've got this upload fee to the BVD-free database, and they've decided, along with the labs, that they're going to absorb it. Because this is one of the big barriers of our scheme, is the fact that we've got no funding behind it. The supply chains, they've done so much work because they know it is something that they want their farmers to be doing, and they're really pushing it, along with the labs, with their involvement. So the media, they've got really behind us and are putting articles out for us, and I think it's been said that you need to be told something 7 times before you actually remember it and it goes in. So it's sort of a case of just pushing it, drip, 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 and they've really helped us with that. The vets. So on that previous map, showed you those areas where the vets were so involved in it, and they keep pushing it, but we just need to work better with them to make sure that they do know they are appreciated. The statement of intent supporters. So we've got 111 of those, and we're working very closely with them for them to go out and work with their members and push out the messages of BVD free and get them involved. And finally, the farmers. The whole reason we're doing it, they've been really on board with it. The ones who have, you get some who say, well, I don't want to do it until I know I'm free. But generally, they are getting behind it. So what are our challenges? We've got a fair few of them. Firstly, we're covering the whole of England, and we've got a lot of cattle in that area. So it's a case of, do we tackle it regionally? Do we go to individual vet practices? Or do we just look at the whole thing and just try and get wins where we can? Secondly, technology. So it's quite labour intensive getting farmers, and it's quite difficult getting farmers to try and fill in a form to say that they want to do something and actually put their name and their signature down on paper. So it works a little bit easier if they do it online, but we're not seeing the uptake there. Our limited resource and funding. So BVD free is a voluntary scheme. There is a very, very small pot of money behind it. So the way that it's funded is by these upload fees to the database. So for anyone uploading tag and test results, so virus results, the farmer will have to pay 25p to get that on the database. And for the blood samples, there's a 50p fee onto our database. So what that money's going to is, when this database was procured and set up, that company had to pay to create that and run the help desk. So all that upload fee is going to try and cover that cost. So we're a little way off that, but they are doing a great job. And also, we are so reliant on supporters. It's getting supporters to realise that they've got to own this scheme. It's an industry scheme. And once they own it, they can go out there and actually push it to farmers. Access to data. A very big limitation of our scheme currently is that we don't have an access to the British cattle movement system. So we're coming into the second year of the scheme where we should be doing herd statuses. So we've got to look at ways around that without that link to BCMS. But there is DEFRA looking at changing the system, which is what is holding us up. So hopefully with this new system in place, we've got enough channels in that we are going to be top of their list, and it should be a priority. Communication. I get a lot of farmers ringing me up and saying, well, what's your BVD-free scheme? Why is it different to anybody else's? So we've got a lot of work to do for farmers to understand that this is the BVD-free scheme for England. So we've got a lot of work with supporters and with farmers just to try and get a better information out there. Our last one is a bit of a chicken and egg, because farmers are saying, we need that market driver. We need to know that if we test, we're going to get more money for our stock that we're putting through market. But before we get all this out into markets, we need to know that we've got enough animals there who have been tested so that farmers who are going in to buy stock can look, and it sets that seed that when they go into market, you've got a cattle coming through the ring and they've got a BVD status up there. You might have a farmer who is completely oblivious to BVD, doesn't know what it is, but they might start to think, what is that? But for that to happen, we need to make sure that we've got enough of those individual animal statuses on there. So we just need a critical mass. So where can we improve? From a BVD-free point of view, we need to get better at communicating with vets to make sure that you've got the right information from us, you know what we're trying to do, and we need to make it so that you've got a strong case to go to your farmers and say, it's a no-brainer, you should sign up for this. There are no reasons why you shouldn't. And that's where we need to get to. Display of results on the database. So currently, our database can be used if you've got a UK number of an animal that you're looking at buying. You can put it in and see if they've got a status on there. But for herds which are doing a check test, so looking for antibody, nothing comes up at the moment apart from that they're registered. So what we'd like to do is get it so that people can do a bit more risk-based trading. So, you know, if that herd has been testing during the year and what those results were. So that's where we'd like to get. So it would be making the database a bit more user-friendly so that you do get a bit more value from it. And generating the market demand, our chicken and egg. So we need to increase the knowledge within livestock auctions about BVD and what the statuses actually mean, because there's no point having them out in market if people don't understand them, because it just will not work and it will just flop. And then we also need to work with those calf buyers. So if we can generate that demand that, I will only buy stock which has been tested virus negative, then we're getting that snowball rolling. And finally, funding. So the funding at the moment is currently coming from AHDB. So the Dairy Board and the Beef and Lamb Board decided that, this is going to be something that they need to get involved with. So that's where the money's coming from at the moment. But that is not an unlimited pot, and we've got that secured for a year, but who knows after that. So we need to potentially look at an alternative source, because a big barrier for farmers is this upload fee. And there is potential that there is rural development funding. There might be a tender. Well, there was a tender, but hopefully there'll be a more workable tender which comes out, which will make this scheme more user-friendly. So that is BVDfree England.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. Any questions for her?
I think it's a great overview. Just give us a few, I know it's the first year, I don't mean this as a criticism, but how many animal records are on there at the moment, and how many PIs do you know are out there? And how do you know if the PIs have been slaughtered with it being an entirely voluntary scheme? How are you able to check that?
So at the moment, from the last look at virus positives, I think it was 137, which of those animals on there. So out of those, I think so it would be just over 33,000 have been tested, 137 of those are virus positive. In regards to how do we know if they've been slaughtered, at the moment we don't. Unless a farmer comes to us and says, this is my BCMS record, it has been slaughtered, it's been removed. We don't have that link, we don't know until we've got that access to BCMS. And was there a third point of that question?
I think you covered
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that is our big limitation, that we do need that access so we can start using that data and know what is going on.
Any more questions?
Thanks very much, Nigel Miller, Livestock Health Scotland. And I love being critical of England, so I was keen to actually ask a question. And really at both ends of your scheme. One was your original diagram with all these people that were promoting it and supporting it, which looked fantastic. But I was amazed that about the second last group you put on there was the farmers. Because in reality, they should be the first group on there. Because unless they actually have bought into this before all your bloody supporters, you've got no chance. So, that would be the second. And the third, I think, the lesson from, other countries, and I suppose Scotland, who maybe aren't that wonderful either, is that, unless you do have some sort of legislative, programme or an escalator towards freedom, it's actually jolly difficult. And I think that, obviously, Michael there, who's looking at his phone, is a key player in actually to actually getting government on board with this. Have you got some commitment from government to give you that legislative escalator? Because without it, however good you are, it's very difficult to make progress.
So in regards to the last part of that question, when I started, it was said that if we can prove that farmers actually want this scheme, that we can get it through government. But in regards to the farmers want that scheme, we're looking at 50% of holdings, so that's about 20,400 that we need behind it to actually say, yeah, they think this is a good idea. So in regards to the farmers wanting the scheme, it is a case of the farmers we've got on here, we've got a few checks herds because they are engaged in BVD eradication. We've got the 1,044 farmers who most of them will not be checks herds. And then coming from a lot of the vets, in regards to engagement, a lot of farmers have done it off their own back. They are free, but we need to get something from BVDfree England to actually go to those farmers and say, we know you're free. We've got to make them want to join BVDfree England to prove. So we have got those farmers out there. How many, I don't know, but we need to get those drivers for them to want to become one of our number. So, yeah, got a long way to go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eleanor, and for the questions.